Hey guys, welcome back to Tennis 360 podcast where we talk about all things tennis. My name is Anthony Hirsch.
And I'm Eliza Wastcoat.
And welcome back to the podcast. So we just had the first week finish up of the Australian Open. It's been a ridiculous week. It's been chaotic. The women's draw has really, the top half has completely fallen apart there. Have you been keeping an eye on that and how that's been going?
Yeah, let's kick things off with a review of what's happened in the WTA because I think it's very interesting. You know, I came into this tournament feeling like this might be one of the first tournaments we've had in a long time where really our top, 4 or 5 seeds are really going to make a deep run here because they, finished off the year in good form. Rybakina started off the year in great form. And so I was looking forward to a first Grand Slam in a while where some of those big names are really going to make the runs and have a good, deep tournament with those players. And I think that this is just, the complete opposite of that. We lost, how many was it? 12 seeds in the first round.
Yeah.
We had just 6 seeds left in the fourth, and now there's only 4 seeds left in the quarters. Of which only 3 of those are top 10. Yeah. I think we've all been pretty surprised by the matches that were lost by the, Swiatek and the Rybakina, but then also some of those, higher seeds in the 10 to 20 zone, like an Ostapenko crashing out, or even a Vika Azarenka's losing. So Talina retired yesterday. So I think, totally the opposite of kind of having a dominant Grand Slam performance from some of these big names. Instead, we're getting to know some new faces, some names that I think, we've mentioned as players to watch in the past, but did not expect them to have a breakout tournament this year. And so I think what's worth discussing is like, how much is it that these players are just playing an exceptional level right now? And how much is it that these top players who we would have expected to make a deep run just couldn't put on a strong performance this week?
Yeah. Because I think it's a thing of never really bank on tennis predictability. There's always going to be a sense of unpredictability there. Some sports, there's like a degree of, okay, but tennis is so small margin. I think that this proves yet again with people saying, oh, well, Sinner, Alcaraz, Medvedev, Djokovic on the men's side are going to get to the semis, and then Gauff, and then Sabalenka, Swiatek, Rybakina. Like, those were the names that people said. But it didn't quite end up being that way. Yeah, I think the big one for me was 6 seeds in the round of 16. And then, Svitolina retiring yesterday, which was really unfortunate to see with Svito. Because I thought, for me, she was my favorite to get to the final there, just the way she was playing. She hadn't had she won every single match in straight sets. Not a single set that she played went past. The other player didn't get 4 games in a single set. I mean, she was playing really well in Auckland. She had a really tough final against Gauff. I mean, she was in really good form, so it's tough to see for Svitolina retiring really early. It seemed like she was injured right from the get-go there. The women's draw has totally fallen apart. You still have Gauff and Sabalenka, so these are 2 names that people had big eye on. These are the last 2 finalists of the last major that was played, so that is something for sure. But it's always fun to have a chaotic draw. I think it gives some opportunities to some names, and especially some of these names are younger names, like Noskova has a good run now, and then you have a player as well like Zhang, and it's really good to have attention on these names because a lot of those names in that top 4 are also young players, but it's good to have more young players getting to the late stages of the slams. So that's something good. Zhang trying to go for her first major semifinal. And Noskova in the mix. So who do you have your eye on the most in that top half? I was looking at Yastrzemski yesterday. She seems like she's playing a high level at her best. So many winners right from her first match against Vondrousova. She qualified in, so she's 2 matches away from being the second qualifier ever to reach the final of a major. Zhang is playing amazing. I mean, she bageled Dodin yesterday, and then also. There are a few good names out there. I would say Noskova is the player that I have my eye on the most. What would you say for yourself?
Yeah, I think with the women's draw and WTA in general, Grand Slam tennis is so different when you're playing best of 5 versus best of 3. I think that just leaves so little room and margin for error. If you drop that first set, you have very little time to kind of problem solve and figure it out. I mean, look how many 5-setters we've seen on the ATP side where, our top seeds have been pushed to a 5th set. And then some of that inexperience or lack of fitness from a lower ranked player sort of starts to show. And so I just think that it shows the challenges of best of 3 at a big tournament where there's a lot of pressure and why some of these names are falling. And I also think, we've seen some kind of standout performances from players. And I think particularly in these hot conditions on these faster hard courts, it totally suits somebody like a Yastremska or a Noskova to have a good tournament here. They're big, powerful baseline players. I think that I watched Yastremska last night versus Azarenka, and without taking credit away from her, she played a great game and she kept fighting. She was in losing positions in multiple times in this match. Azarenka served for the set twice in the first set, and she was also broke Yastremska early in the second and just couldn't get over the line. She didn't have a great serving day. I just don't think it was Azarenka's kind of best performance, because in the rounds before that, she was serving really well. She played a great match against Ostapenko. I thought that she was looking strong, and I kind of agreed with you on the Svitolina side of things as well. Obviously, just super unfortunate to pick up an injury like that, especially when it's your back. It just makes moving completely impossible. So Noskova got a little bit of a pass, but also, I think Svitolina made a nice comment in her press conference of like, all the players who've made it here deserve to be here. Like, they put in the work. And in terms of that kind of top half, I would say that Noskova is my pick to make that through to the semis and set up a meeting with, I'm hoping, or my pick would be Zhang over Yastremska. So, but Kalinskaya also has an interesting game. She actually has a very clean game. She deals with power well. She's a good mover, good defender. I think in the past she's just struggled with injuries and an ability to kind of have consistency, but she's super confident, believes in her game. And I think that she's had a good little run here too. So it's really hard to call between some of these names. I do think Yastremska, she's come through qualifying. There's a lot of hours on the court under her legs, and Zhang has had one tricky match, but otherwise has been pretty routine in progressing into this quarterfinal. And I think that she brings the similar sort of power game as Yastremska does, but I would argue with more consistency. And so, that's why I would pick those two names of a semifinal meeting between Noskova and Zhang.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, there's a lot of power hitters in that kind of section. Obviously, that's where Rybakina was supposed to be as well, so she would have been another. But I think that Noskova just throughout the tournament, I mean, she has probably the most impressive win of the tournament, beating Swiatek in the way that she did. I didn't even think, I was watching that match, and for a set and a half, I didn't even have huge upset alerts on for Swiatek, although I was very high in Noskova. I was like, this doesn't look like she's completely hitting Swiatek off the court. It feels like this is kind of usual. But then Noskova had a long deuce game at like 3-0, and then she kind of, after that, it seemed like she just gained a lot of confidence. Her defense to offense throughout that match was amazing. She was like kind of slicing and dicing, and then that was it. She was getting into advantageous positions where she could really hit winners. And after that, she just really hit Swiatek off the court. So that was really impressive. And then, we didn't really get to see, though, her performance against Svitolina. So it's just so hard to say because Svitolina retired so early. Zhang did have a tough one. I remember in the first round against Ashlyn Kruger, she was down a set in that one. But then, so she's had it. Zhang is a little bit more up and down to me. So I would be more ready to bank on Noskova just because in this tournament, she's been so consistently so good. And
I mean, she barely beat Wang in the third round as well. Won that in the third set tiebreak 10-8.
Right. Yes,
so that was a challenge there too.
Yes, and I believe she was serving. Yeah, she was up a break late in that third set, and that was a really epic match, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, any of those names, Kalinskaya is just so confident, and she has a great game on her. Her talent is obvious. It's just like whether or not she can really kind of solidify it and go use it to get some runs. But yeah, Yamstremska has caught my eye though. She played three setters in the qualifying.
Yeah,
That's crazy. Like, she played three
Yeah.
set matches in qualifying. She went to 3 sets in the third round. She played the 7th seed and reigning Wimbledon champion in the first round. So I don't know how Yamstremska has kind of managed this, but that's an incredible run for a qualifier. But she's going to be tired against Noskova. I would be ready to bank on Noskova because she has been the more consistent. Like you said, she did struggle at times against Azarenka. Zhang is going to be the really interesting name for me in the top half because if she plays her best, then she can beat anyone. It's just about if she brings that level to the table. On the bottom half, Kostyuk is a name, but I think a lot of people, no offense to Kostyuk, she's been playing a really good ball, and she's definitely best tennis I've seen from her. But Gauff and Sabalenka, and then also Krejcikova. We'll see how Krejcikova does against Sabalenka. That will be interesting as well, between two major champions, one-time major champions as well at that. But yeah, we'll kind of see how the draw kind of unfolds from there. But yeah, the women's side, I think we got to bring up the Blinkova versus Rybakina match, where they went 22-20 in the third set tiebreaker. And they had 6 consecutive breaks before the tiebreaker, and then nobody could win 2 consecutive points. Blinkova playing so aggressive with such fight and determination. Rybakina, yes, at times not playing her best. She looked a little bit off. Her serve wasn't as reliable as it is at some points. I mentioned, I remember in her first match, she went 60% of first serves in, which Rybakina generally just says a lot higher. And I was saying, once she comes up against a better opponent, that's going to be tough. I didn't think it would be Blinkova who would be that better opponent, but Blinkova played an incredibly high level, and Rybakina, I think, won just 48% of her second serve points or something. So she needs to make more first serves in. And there are a few errors towards the end. To be honest, Rybakina, to me, never really looked absolutely at her 100%. But that being said, there's very little to nitpick, as Blinkova just played the absolute just match of her life with such utter determination and fight. And I really think it was a match of a lifetime. And it was so exciting watching that tiebreaker go. Did you have thoughts on that match?
Yeah, I mean, I think Anna Blinkova, again, is a kind of name that's like, we've mentioned her before. She came up a little bit last year and like had a couple, small impressive performances, but again, is a player that has dealt with some nasty injuries earlier on in her career and has just sort of hampered her ability to make progress and kind of get deep into these tournaments. And again, I think it's just demonstrative of how deep the women's field is and how many of these types of kind of power players there are. And that if you're not, playing at 100%, that these types of matches can get out of hand. And Rybakina did not take her opportunities. But I think a lot of people will have seen that match point that Blinkova saved late on in the tiebreak, where she was just running side to side. She hit 2 kind of squash shot forehands just to kind of keep herself in the point. And, maybe Rybakina of last year would have finished the point. It's hard to know. Sometimes these things are just kind of written in the stars, or there's just not much more you can do or ask of yourself. And she just was coming up against a brick wall in Blinkova, who is just refusing to lay down. And again, that's another thing that's tricky when you're competing against someone who literally has nothing to lose. And, the pressure's not on you in the same way. And when you're playing best of 3, there is no room for error, no room to wake up, no room to kind of figure it out. I think of things like Rublev going to a 5th set or Medvedev needing a 5th set multiple times in this tournament to kind of get the job done. And, how much those players sometimes need a bit of margin for error to get through. So, just couldn't maintain a high enough level for the duration of that 3-set match. But I think, we were fans and were blessed with a complete special in that one, and will go down as, one of the best moments of this year's Australian Open. And it was just a shame that Blinkova didn't have much left in her legs for the next round.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, it was unreal. It was unreal to watch. I mean, people are freaking out on socials, just saying like this match is ridiculous. And I mean, it was the 18-17 point, but it was also Blinkova had about 6 or 7 match points that probably she could have done a little bit better on, but Rybakina was serving up 12-11, finally had a match point of her own, and on her own serve, and everybody was like, okay, well, surely now it's over. Rybakina with an incredible comeback. And then Rybakina hits a forehand like right on the baseline. Blinkova picks it up with a backhand and just plays amazing defense to offense, and then has a really tough shot that falls short, but she kind of scoops it up for a forehand winner inside out to make it 12-12. So it was that 18-17 point, but I hope that people look at that tiebreaker as a whole for how impressive it was from both. It was really a great effort. But yeah, like you said, the margins are so small, well, in those tiebreakers, and then also in best of 3 as well. I mean, you look at the big 3 on the men's side, and they've just barely lost majors on the men's side for like a long time. But the Masters is much more open, especially since about 2016, 2017, because listen, Djokovic could lose to Tommy Haas in straight sets in Miami. That happened. And, you know, there's these losses every now and again that happen in the Masters. That would never happen in the majors. In fact, it didn't happen on the majors for a long time. They just don't lose. So I think there is something to say that the best of 3 is much smaller margins. That's what you get on the women's side. Do you think that they should entertain having best of 5 on the women's side? That's a tough question and definitely multifaceted.
Look, I mean, I think they've done it a little bit in the past, like at WTA finals many moons ago in the 90s, they had that. I don't think it's a matter of fitness or ability. You know, I think we know by now that female athletes are conditioned and totally capable of performing in the same, you know, duration of time as the men's tennis. I think it's always been a question of, if you have women's matches going for 4 or 5 hours, you have a scheduling nightmare. And we already have a scheduling nightmare because matches are going longer than they ever used to. That's thanks to technology and the evolution of the game. And so, you know, I don't think it's something that we'll see, because it's just, you know, you could have a Grand Slam then that will last 3 weeks. Otherwise, you'll never be able to play all of these matches. But, you know, I think it would put a lot of, you know, the arguments to bed in terms of, you know, women aren't as entertaining or aren't as reliable or shouldn't be paid the same, you know, kind of all of these thoughts and negativities that go around the women's game. I think it would prove to a lot of people in terms of, you know, exactly as you say, like we have so many of these kind of random upsets or players able to, make deep runs at Masters that they're not able to make at majors because life playing 5 sets is so different. And I feel like it would be interesting to see it and kind of see who deals best with it. But I don't think it's something that is actually on the cards as much as I would enjoy it.
more of a scheduling thing than anything else. Yeah, that's fair.
Think so.
Yeah, well, I'd be down for a 3-week major, but I don't know if the tournament director would be particularly excited about it. Yeah, I would agree. I think it would be fun if it was viable, and if players want to do it, fans want to do it. I mean, I think women's tennis is great anyway, but I think that would be something that would only enhance it. But I don't know if it's viable. So it's an interesting question, though, I think. But yeah, other things. I mean, Jessica Pegula, Ons Jabeur both lost in like easy straight sets, which was just disappointing. Mira Andreeva won in 20 minutes 6-0, and it was just really wild to see because Ons just looked flat. I mean, she hit less than 10 winners throughout that match. In fact, you know what? Pegula and Jabeur both hit less than 10 winners throughout their matches, which is really an absurd. Both hit 9 winners in their matches. Jabeur looked flat out there. I mean, she was hitting unforced error on unforced error. It just looked like athletically she was flat. She wasn't really moving her legs very much. That said, Mira played an absolutely phenomenal match. I mean, probably the best I've seen her play yet. Very complete. Well, we can talk about that. First, I want to talk about Pegula and Jabeur, which is just like, what is happening with Pegula? Like, it just seems like at the start of this year, she is not the player that she ended off last year, even at WTA finals last year. Like, she was playing really well. And then suddenly it just seems like she had a loss to Katie Boulter from when she was up a set. And that just didn't happen last year, where she was like 15. She was about 15-0 when she was up a set. And then to start off this year at the Australian Open as well. So I don't know what's going on with JPEG. I hope she doesn't go down. It's always going to be hard to maintain her consistency. And Ons Jabeur is just so talented. It seems like after that Wimbledon final, it's just been heartbreaking for her. She hasn't been able to find the kind of right kind of mental ways for her matches, and it's just been struggles. And those are the kind of the names that at the moment are kind of the big names outside of those top four that have kind of really shown themselves at the top of the game. Obviously, you could have other players climbing up there. I mean, Krejcikova, and then you could have also other players who are climbing up right now. I was saying Mira Andreeva, who knows? Naomi Osaka's coming back, but those are the two names that people are saying, hey, they could still win majors in this era. And it's just unfortunate to see that they're both struggling now, because they do deserve to have some more big, deep major results for different reasons. They're both very different players, but it's bad. It's not good to see them both struggling. Pegula 6-4, 6-2 to Burrell, which is just disappointing result. Do you think that, well, what do you think of those matches? And do you think that Pegula might have a step down of a season now because of how she started her season?
Yeah, so I think with Jabeur, I guess I wasn't sure about her match fitness and her general kind of health. I know she had issues with her knee towards the end of last year. I'm not sure what her preseason really looked like. I know that neither of us were particularly confident about her coming into the Australian Open either. Didn't really think of her as a contender. And but certainly was surprised to see that type of performance against Andreeva. She, as you say, she looked very flat. I know there was a documentary that came out where she talked about, being particularly sad about losing Wimbledon and how she wanted to stop and have a family after winning Wimbledon was like her dream. And so maybe there's this like hangover effect from that. She played fine at the US Open. I think she then got sick and, wasn't well, that virus that was going around. But that hangover has seemed to, bleed into the remainder of last year's season. And then, again, at the start of this year, I think my guess would be maybe she'll come alive a little bit during some of the tournaments in the Middle East. Some fans, kind of in her part of the world, in her region. And I think she'll be motivated to compete well there. And, for Pegula, again, like kind of a name like Sakkari, where we have question marks over her ability to have Grand Slam runs and performances at slams. And it's just really not good enough, unfortunately. And only she could really know the answer as to why that keeps happening. Again, same thing with Sakkari. It just no reason for some of these results and just kind of showing up and having such a subpar performance. My guess would be, though, with Pegula that she will bounce back. I think that she's a pretty resilient kind of mind, pretty good at kind of moving on from upsets, and it seems like she has a good team, a good kind of balance around her. I think her coaches are good coaches. And she did have a long season last year. And again, maybe there was some, kind of hangover and a little bit of a bad start. But I expect to see her bounce back and have a better run, at tournaments moving forward. Sakkari would be the one player I have even more questions about. I just feel like that, bad run of form at slams has been going on even longer. I know Pegula's not made it past the quarters, but at a major, but she's also newer to the, kind of top 10 family and has had a different trajectory than Sakkari. And Sakkari has just lost in the first, second, or third round in the last, I don't even know, 10 slams. It's just such a bad run of form. And it makes me have question marks about, particularly with Sakkari, her team, and, having the same coach for as many years as she's had. Maybe that's not the right relationship for them anymore.
Yeah, well, Sakkari is a good mention, because I was encouraged by her form at the United Cup. I thought she was spinning the ball really well. She looked confident. She looked like mentally positive. And then I don't know what it is with her. I think since about 2021, early 2022, I think she's been as high as number 2 or 3 in the world early in 2022 when kind of that number 2 or number 3 ranking was being passed around by a lot of players. But, she was playing really well around that time, and it's just at the slams, and I don't know what it is. Pegula seems like one of the more introspective, self-aware players. She'll know that she'll need to pick it up. And I do agree that she has a good team and support around her. I will say that I do worry a little bit that this might be a little bit of a step down now that she's kind of had the start that she has, because I'm not used to her having the bad start to the season. She usually starts pretty well, and it's just such a big step down that it makes me worry. I mean, Sakkari already wasn't doing that well towards the end of last year, but Pegula is doing so well at the WTA finals, for example. So to start off at the Australian Open was just a bit tough to see. And Ons Jabeur, well, it's just the thing of Ons Jabeur. Personally, I can only speak from my subjective opinion, but I think that she's a player who, in my opinion, should have won a major in her career because she's so talented and she has one of the best mentalities on the tour consistently, and she's also such a great athlete. Her peak level is so high, she can beat the top players. She has a dangerous kind of game full of so much variety and so many weapons. I think that this is a player that should have won a major. Probably too much pressure she put on herself at that Wimbledon. It's obviously a very kind of heartbreaking story. But I think that Pegula is a player that should have reached a major semifinal. I mean, I don't know if you can just automatically just go like, oh, Pegula should have already won multiple majors, although she could have. She's a very good player, but at the least she should have reached a semifinal. She should have already reached a major final at the least, probably, if not won a major. So the fact that she's having so many quarterfinal problems on the women's side is almost more surprising than Rublev on the men's side, even though Rublev's reached more quarterfinals. It's just so utterly surprising Pegula hasn't reached one because she is so consistent. She's queen of consistency. She's queen of she's already won a few WTA 1000 tournaments. I mean, she can beat the top players. She beat Swiatek in Canada last year. She's obviously has the game for her. She beat Swiatek at United Cup to start the year. So it's weird to see her start the year in such a poor way, especially at the form she had at the end of last year. So I do worry a bit for Pegula. I hope both of them can bounce back. I would love to see Ons win a major. I would love to see Pegula win a major, but at least reach a major semifinal and not go away completely like she has. So we'll see how those two kind of do. But yeah, the women's side, it's been really wild. Like you said, only 4 seeds left in the quarters. So we'll see how all of them do. Gauff Sabalenka could play out like a final. Before we move on to the men's side, do you want to talk about the Gauff Sabalenka semi, and if you think that could play out almost like a final if we do get it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame. It's a shame we wouldn't get that as a final. And without kind of making presumptions, folks know we're filming this on Monday morning, so they'll be playing tonight. So by the time you watch this, the results will already be known. I don't want to dismiss Kostyuk and Krejcikova, but certainly Gauff and Sabalenka would be the favorites, and I feel pretty confident about the two of them being able to figure this out. And you know, it'll be interesting because last year Sabalenka made a semifinal better at every single slam. And the ones that she did lose at the French Open and at Wimbledon in the semis, she had leading positions and then lost. So that was where people started having question marks again over Sabalenka's ability to get the job done, like get over the line. And then same thing, you know, US Open makes the final and couldn't quite get over the line after winning the first set. So I'm intrigued to see if she might have a different game plan against Gauff this year. I think Gauff's game has continued to evolve since the US Open last year. I mean, she looks like she's moving really well. I will say, like, Sabalenka's form at the start of this year has maybe impressed me like ever so slightly more than Gauff. I think Gauff like took a couple matches in this AO to like find her feet, but I think she's in a really good headspace in that, you know, even if she's facing challenges, she's like, I feel good out here. I look good out here. I'm going to play good tennis. Like, I'm just not going to get stressed about it and enjoy it. And I think that that is always a dangerous mindset for an opponent. And yeah, I mean, I think that that will be the best match of the women's tournament, hopefully, if we do get it. And it'll be a tight one, but I'm continuing to stick with my pick of Sabalenka to win the tournament and defend the title. I just feel like this place has a special connection with her. I think that she continues to impress me with her mindset and her ability to work through and improve where she's had challenge areas before. And she's playing some really strong tennis. Having said that, she's, you know, not played too many top players and has conserved a lot of energy. So you know, it's hard to know, but I'm sticking with my original pick.
Oh, it's a good pick. Yeah, I picked Rybakina at the start, so you're good with Sabalenka. Your best match of the tournament, so it goes 23-21, the tiebreaker then, the third set, you think?
Yeah. We'll see.
Nice. Yeah, it will be good. Sabalenka, yeah, she has semifinal concerns. Australia, I agree. The way she's been playing so far, I mean, the way she hit her forehand against Mira sorry, not against Mira, against Anisimova, I should say, in the round of 16 was phenomenal. I mean, she played at such a high level in that match. I mean, there's a rally in the first set where they were just hitting bullet forehands, and then within like half a second notice, she just changes direction perfectly with the forehand inside out, and it's just a screamer of a clean winner. And Sabalenka just plays impressive. I think she does get confidence from the fact that she was actually able to get over that major final problem, that major semifinal problem in this tournament. And yeah, I think she'll be confident. I would say that Sabalenka is going to be so motivated against Coco from that final at the U.S. Open to get revenge, and then also to defend her title in her final as well. So I think that Sabalenka is my favorite going in. I also think that Sabalenka and Gauff won't have much trouble. I think Krejcikova might be the tougher of the opponents, but I do think that Sabalenka is playing the better ball so far in the year, and I think that Sabalenka and Gauff both get it done in straight sets, personally. And then also, I guess we can also look ahead as well to Yastremska taking on Zhang and Noskova taking on Kalinskaya, and what we think of those. I'm gonna actually back Yastremska to get it done against Zhang. I think that Yastremska impressed me a lot with a couple of the matches I've now seen her play this year. This kind of tournament, whether it was against Vondrousova or whether it was against Azarenka. And Zhang has been a little bit more up and down. So I'm actually going to take Yastremska to the semis, and then I'm going to take Noskova to the semis as well, because everything that I was saying, her power has impressed me, and I just think that Noskova is young and she's ready for the moment. She's ready to kind of break through in even a larger way. So I would take Noskova in 2 sets. I would take Yastremska in 3 sets. Good run for Zhang anyway to get to 2 consecutive major quarters. But what are your thoughts?
Last thing on Gauff Sabalenka as well. The factor of the home crowd for Gauff at the US Open was huge. I mean, Sabalenka can't seem to stop talking about that she felt like she needed some more support. Otherwise she would have won. So again, that's a neutralizing factor, which I think will make the match more interesting. But in terms of the other semifinalists, I mean, I think I picked earlier Noskova and Zhang, and I'm going to stick with them. I think Yastremska, she's hot and cold sometimes in matches. You know, in the previous matches, if we saw her win the first set, she often then lost the second because she kind of ran out of gas a little bit and then found it again in the third. I think Zhang has maybe a tiny bit more experience. I guess my only question marks or flags would be over the pressure and the expectation on her over Yastremska. I think her serve is a little stronger. I think her power from the baseline is a little more consistent. I know that Yastremska responds well to power serves and kind of reacts to it better than she does a kick serve. So it'll kind of be interesting to see how Zhang plays it. But I think I really like her hitting from both wings. I think her backhand is strong, whereas when I watched Yastremska at times, she struggles when you kind of hit it up and out of the strike zone on her backhand side. She can kind of come down on it pretty hard and isn't really willing to give up much room on the baseline. So, that's why I'm sticking with Zhang.
Okay, I'm not as confident in Zhang's serve, but I respect that for sure, and I think she'll be the favorite going in. So I guess we'll see. I'll take Yastremska for the upset though, because it's a crazy qualifier run so far. I think she'll want to keep it going.
Yeah,
and she looks confident.
She does. On to the ATP.
Yeah, onto the ATP. Yeah, we can go over there. Okay, so on the ATP side, we've had a much more kind of straightforward tournament, but that doesn't mean that it hasn't come with its chaos, because it has been a wild tournament. We had 25-set matches in the first round, so many long, epic matches, a couple 5th-set tiebreaks. We had Ruud and Zverev both playing 5th-set tiebreakers at the exact same time, both coming out against Purcell and against Klein. Both 10-7 in the 5th-set tiebreakers. Yesterday, we had a great match between Norrie and Zverev. Zverev coming through another 5th-set tiebreaker there. And then also just like all across the board, there's been Just really, really fantastic matches. And in the draw, we have all top 12 seeds in the quarterfinals, which is really, really great to see. And it's not a story on the women's side, is it? No.
No,
for it to be
not quite the
seeds.
same. But, I think I think the closeness and the number of 5-set matches shows you again that there is a depth of talent on the ATP side, and that there are players coming up and, surprising us with results. I thought that Klein versus Zverev, I mean, Klein had it on his racket. He missed a simple volley in the net. It was just a matter of tiny margins. He was so close to winning that match. And, I think the Rublev-Dimonor match was also super tight, or Rublev's Sabeth-Wilch was also super tight in the first round, or, Medvedev wasn't totally untroubled, and neither was Tsitsipas versus Borges, and kind of, all of these names. So I think the other name that was totally unfamiliar to me before coming into the tournament was Kazo, who took out Rune. Kazao, okay. Versus Rune and Griekspoor. I mean, he really impressed me against Holger. It was less of like Holger losing and more of Kazo winning that match. And, kind of all of a sudden now is on my radar as a player to watch. The other name that I want to throw in the mix that was so much fun this past week was Mannarino. I mean, he played 3 5-set matches in his first 3 matches. He took out Ben Shelton, who made the quarters here last year, who's been playing some good ball. And
former champion Wawrinka as well, from down 2-1 in the break.
What an entertainer. I mean, this guy just never fails to make me laugh. Had the best on-court interview of the week, saying tequila is his way to go. The secret behind his success is a 35-year-old.
Pro success.
Which really made me laugh. So, yeah, I mean, I think... we also saw Sonego played well against Alcaraz, Sasmanovic. Alcaraz dismantled him pretty easily, but again, like some little tidbits of gold there, which made it feel slightly more competitive, because at times with the ATP in those first like 2 to 3 rounds, some of those matches are so simple in straight sets. It's kind of like, you don't always feel super invested, but that's not been the case this time around.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, I'd also mention like Dino Prismic, who pushed Novak, and those are a few names popping as well. So yeah, I would agree with you. In terms of Arthur Cazaux, the French guy, I mean, this is a guy who I'm not going to speak too long on him, but not as a bit of a flex, but I've known about him for a couple of years now through the challengers. He was the guy that I was telling everybody, like, watch out, this guy's going to come up quick. And I was happy he did. He's a very talented all-court player who's showing that against a guy like Rune, against Griekspoor. I mean, this is a guy who played so fearless, just came up. This is how I've seen him in the past. And yeah, against Rune, if you just turn the match on to somebody, you can tell who was the number 8 seed, who was the unseeded player. And that's what I like out of a player. If you're going to be able to beat a guy like Rune, you have to think, hey, I'm the favorite to win this match. And I know that people on social media, you'll see people being like, confidence is arrogance, but you need to have that kind of confidence that's almost insane to beat these guys. And it was good to see him fist bumping, just believing in himself. And he was a guy that definitely showed up this week. Klein versus Zverev is a match that I also want to talk about. Klein had 80 winners in that match. He was the better player for most of it. Zverev actually almost miraculously was holding on. Klein was even playing the big points better throughout most of that match, actually, I would say. And then it was just Zverev just barely holding on. It was 7-7 in the 5th set tiebreaker. Klein has an open court for a volley put away, and then he just misses it right into the net, right from on top of the net. So it was a bit of a heartbreaker, to be honest, for a guy who was playing so well. And then to just lose it there. And then also Purcell hit 93 winners in his match against Casper, and that was incredible. Yeah, which is a number you just don't see. And it's just like, man, he has the classic kind of serve and volley style, just all aggressive that you saw back in the day. He was testing out Rude, but the problem is he went 1 for 13 on break points converted, and that was like the big stat. And he wasn't playing the big points as well, but he was playing phenomenal for the most part. And that's Casper just being solid. But Casper loses to Norrie, and then Norrie and Zverev have another really great match yesterday, where I felt like Norrie actually was playing really impressive tennis against Zverev. He actually arguably should have won the first set, but Zverev pulled it out. And then Nori managed to get the second set on him, and Nori was playing amazing. He was hitting the forehand low. He was hitting it aggressive. Just didn't have enough for Zverev at the end, who kind of ran away with the fifth set tiebreaker. But all around, Nori, I think, was impressive. Even on the set point, the fourth set to take it. I mean, he was so aggressive with the forehand. I mean, you would think the Zverev backhand is actually so good, the cross-court rallies might actually favor Zverev there, but Nori's forehand was just hitting absolutely amazing through the court. So Nori played great, but yeah, Zverev pulling out through 2 5-set tiebreakers. I think a lot of his toughest match yet, though, against Alcaraz. So we'll see how that kind of goes. Alcaraz, I think, beat him in straight sets at the U.S. Open in the quarterfinals. So I think that'll be tough for Zverev. But either way, we've had some really great matches. And now we have Fritz versus Djokovic, Sinner versus Rublev, Hurkacz versus Medvedev, and Zverev versus Alcaraz. Do you want to kind of throw in some predictions there? Well, first of all, for Sinner versus Rublev and Fritz versus Djokovic, I've got Sinner and Djokovic. I think that those can be tough, but it's like you see those names, and Sinner has everything that Rublev has, except I think that he has a little bit more to offer altogether. Just everything that Rublev does, I think he does a little bit better, and also he has a little bit more completeness to his game at the moment. I would argue for Yannick. And then for Fritz versus Djokovic, I actually think Fritz is going to do better than a lot of people think he's going to. He played a fantastic match against Tsitsipas. His first top 10 win at a major. He had 50 winners to 19 unforced errors. He had 70% of his first serves in. He won 86% of first serve points. Fritz was these are two guys that I think are actually pretty comparable to one another. They Fritz and Tsitsipas can both struggle a little bit on the back end, but are huge off the forehand and the serve. They both struggled for parts of last year, but they played a 5-set match at the Australian Open a couple of years ago. Fritz's first time in the 4th round of a major, and now he reaches the quarterfinal of a major, beating Tsitsipas in 4 sets. He takes it from Tsitsipas, hitting the backhand amazingly through the court with his backhand down the line in particular. Was working amazing to get the break in the 4th set. He had a great kind of backhand return of serve down the line, and then a great drop shot, then a volley. I mean, all the skills were coming out. Fritz is a great athlete. He's a great skillful player. If he plays like he did, then I think he has the aggressive kind of style and serve that can test out Novak. So I actually think it's going to be harder than some people give it credit for, but I'm going Novak in 4 sets, and I'm going Sinner in straight sets over Rublev. Rublev just played a 5-set match. I'm going with the straight sets because Sinner's yet to drop a set. Sinner's yet to drop a set. I'd also like to touch upon the match they played against Khachanov in the last round, which was really just phenomenal. Khachanov played amazing. I don't want to overstate it, but I think they both played amazing. Sinner is just on another level right now, in another world. The way he was playing, it looked like Khachanov was actually going to tie it up at a set apiece. But at 5-5, he just started hitting winners all over the court and broke Khachanov out of nowhere. Kind of reminiscent of his match against Djokovic at the ATP Finals last year, where it was really close. Then at 5-5, down 40 love on Novak serve, he just broke Djokovic out of nowhere. And anyway, he played a fantastic match. There were a lot of rallies from back to court, both very hesitant to come to net, but the rallies were just as high level as you'll see in a tennis match. And the fact that Sinner could finish it off in 3 with so many physical rallies, long rallies, is to me so impressive for somebody who's lost in these rounds to top guys, high level guys in the later parts of majors. But anyway, what are your kind of predictions for Fritz versus Djokovic, Sinner, Rublev? I also want to get to Hurkacz, Medvedev, and the other quarters because those are interesting too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mostly agree with your thoughts. I mean, I think Fritz, he just hasn't played his best tennis before against Novak, so that's why I think we've seen the type of results that we've seen over the past couple of years. He is 8-0 against him, so we're 0-8. So it's tough, but again, I think for him it's like, okay, well, you have nothing to lose. Like, you've lost this guy 8 times in a row. Like, there's nothing to feel nervous about. No one's expecting you to win this match. Like, there's no pressure on you here. So like, let's turn up and play some great tennis. He seems to be in a good kind of mental space. I mean, I think he made the quarters at the US Open last year, and so that gave him a little bit of a positive boost of getting out of a bad rut of Grand Slam runs. And he seems, he felt confident going into the Tsitsipas match. I think he feels confident with that matchup in general. But he played really well, and his first up percentage was, as you say, really, really high. And it's just a matter of him being able to execute that against Djokovic in order to keep things competitive. I mean, I don't think we expect Taylor to beat Novak from the baseline in long extended rallies. So it's going to require him to, be aggressive, from the jump early on in his service games, and on the return, getting on top of that second serve as much as he can. And I mean, I think we've seen crazier things happen. Novak clearly not at 100% fitness and health, just seems to kind of be struggling with something. So you never know, but I would agree. I think it's maybe going to be closer than it has been in the past, and I would fancy 4 sets rather than 3, but I'm still going to pick Novak to win it.
Yeah.
And
if I could quickly get, so I think that Fritz, I think the big thing for him is, you're mentioning the serve. I think a big thing for him is that he wants to rely on the first serve as much as possible, because they played twice over the span of a couple weeks at the U.S. Open in Cincinnati last year. And Fritz lost, I think, 6-0, 6-4 at Cincinnati, lost at the U.S. Open straight sets. What he was not doing in those matches was getting a lot of first serves in.
Yeah.
And he got 50% of his first serves in one match. He was not getting a lot of serves in. He didn't have that serve to rely on. He wants to do well in the backhand to backhand, which, if he is hitting his backhand as well as he was against Tsitsipas, he will have a pretty decent shot, and he wants to be able to rely on a serve against Novak, who might be the greatest returner we've ever seen. So those, I think, are big tips to Taylor tonight. If from a humble old commentator here. Anyway, you can...
Totally. Yeah, Sinner Rublev, I'm aligned with you again. Rublev's got 2 5-set matches under his belt. He has 8 hours less recovery time than Sinner because he played at night. And Sinner hasn't dropped a set. I mean, he's as fresh as you like coming into this match. I think match on match, he's just getting better and better. And I think he leads the head-to-head technically 4-2, but the 2 times Rublev had a win, those were both retirements from Sinner. One retirement was super early on in a match, like a couple games in. Another retirement was after Sinner won the first set. So Rublev wasn't exactly in winning positions in those matches, so I don't really consider those. And I just think Sinner is on a high and means business. So I'm picking a Djokovic Sinner semi, as many of us predicted from the start, and I'm stoked for it. That's for sure. So if someone ruins the party, I'm gonna be pissed.
Rublev Fritz, I like you guys, but we need another Sinner Djokovic.
Yeah. But then the semifinals for tomorrow evening, which will be as the evening when you're viewing this podcast, we hope. Medvedev plays Hurkacz and Zverev takes on Alcaraz. And I think that probably the tighter of the two is going to be Medvedev and Hurkacz, because of the nature of Hurkacz's kind of serving game and how difficult it is to break him when he's serving well. And I think his forehand's looking really good. It's looking better than it did kind of this time last year. Medvedev hasn't necessarily kind of been playing his best tennis so far in this tournament. I mean, I think there was some stats going around about how many times he was broken the year that he made the Australian Open final. I think it was like 6 times on his way to the final, and he's already been broken 13 times in this tournament. Wow. So it's completely different statistic in terms of how well he's defending the serve. So I'm not, I wouldn't be surprised to see a 5th setter here with the way that these two guys play. But I just think the mental toughness of Medvedev, his ability to problem solve, he's been here before. He's just one of those players that is so good at not going away at the big moments. And, for that reason, I would give the nod to Medvedev.
Yeah, I agree. I also give it to Medvedev for sure. I think I was thinking about this matchup a lot today, actually. And Hurkacz actually, I think you mentioned, leads the head-to-head 3-2. But 2 of those matches came on grass courts. Medvedev leads 2-1 on hard courts. The time that Hurkacz won on hard courts, he was trying to defend his Miami title. It was a couple of years ago, trying to defend in Miami. And Medvedev, it was 2022 or early 2022, right after that Australian Open heartbreaker for Medvedev. So really on hard courts, Medvedev has the advantage for now. Hurkacz is so good on grass courts too. So I wouldn't put that much stake in those matches, especially because they came a couple of years ago. So I have Medvedev on a hard court in a best of 5. Even though Hurkacz, I think, can trouble Medvedev, Hurkacz already had a few tough matches in this tournament, a few tough 5-setters. I'm actually going to look at exactly the run he's had so far. But yeah, so he went 5 sets against Menzik, and then he went 4 sets against Umberg. He had a very tight match against Kazau. He's had a good run, but I would definitely favor Medvedev to pick it up in the late stages. He definitely isn't playing his best tennis in 2022, though. When he reached the final, he had 4 and 5 setters all over the place against Cressy, against Auger-Aliassime, against Kyrgios in the second round. I mean, he was struggling through to the final. So I don't think that Hurkacz is going to have enough to the Medvedev table, but I'm glad to see Hurkacz reach the second week of a major, because I think that he definitely is going to reach a lot more because he's very good on hard courts. He already has 2 hard court masters in his bank. And then, so I'm going to go Medvedev. I'm going to go Medvedev in 4 sets. And Zverev versus Alcaraz is a really interesting match. I mean, they played at the U.S. Open. Alcaraz won in straight sets. Alcaraz is playing absolutely phenomenal tennis. Zverev has already played 2 or 3 5-set matches. He's been struggling through. So I'm going to take Carlos, and I would take Carlos against almost anybody the way he played against Kecmanovic. He was playing out of unreal. He hit like 45 winners to just like 10 something errors. Like, it was unbelievable. He was hitting shots from every part of the court, every shot in the tennis shot book, I think. And when he plays like that, I don't think anybody wants to play him, and he is playing at such a top level. And I feel like he's finally figured out these Australian Open hard courts to the extent of the other courts for sure. I don't think that anybody wants to come close to him. I will say Zverev's done well to hang close and hang tight in a few of these matches, which is a good thing for Zverev, especially against Alcaraz. But Alcaraz in best of 5 is different, and he hasn't lost to a guy not named Sinner, Djokovic, Medvedev, or Alcaraz, or to a guy not named Sinner, Medvedev, or Djokovic since 2022 Roland Garros. So I don't think I think that he gets through it.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think Zverev has more hours on court under his legs, similar as when he went into that match at the US Open with Alcaraz. He just came off an epic 5-setter with Sinner. So yeah, and I actually haven't been as impressed as maybe I thought I would have been from Zverev this tournament. I mean, Klein pushed him to the brink. He really should have lost that match. He said it himself. Norrie pushed him, and Norrie is not a player that I would typically pick to push Zverev. And who knows, how much his kind of personal stuff off court is impacting his tennis. But it doesn't look like he's playing kind of at the top level, or that we saw from him towards the end of last year, where he was really playing well again. And I agree with you that Alcaraz just seems to really have played himself into form over the past couple of rounds, and really seemed to shoot up in confidence in that match against Jerry Shang. And then from then on has just played absolute exhibition tennis, and is looking so dangerous. So I actually would pick him in straight sets to win this match again. I think it's a good head-to-head for him, and I think he knows his Zverev game pretty well, and how to execute against him.
Yeah, well, I think that's fair. I would agree with you. I think Alcaraz is just playing on another level to almost anybody. Alcaraz, Sinner, and Novak, even Medvedev against Borges honestly didn't look that great, to be honest. I would put those 3 in a different level at the moment from everybody else, especially knowing that Alcaraz has a really good head-to-head matchup against Medvedev. Medvedev played the best tennis I've ever seen him play against Alcaraz at the U.S. Open to get it done. So he shows he can if he absolutely maximizes everything in his game. But I have to go with Alcaraz, Sinner, and Djokovic as like the kind of best ones at the moment to watch at this event as contenders for myself. But yeah, the men's event has been really, really good. Alcaraz, you mentioned earlier, against Sonego, had just such a high-level 4-set match there. And yeah, Sonego, and then his match against Shang. And it's good to see Alcaraz getting it done. And I just want to just really quick just give a shout out to what we're witnessing with Carlos Alcaraz, because I know we're getting used to it now, but the fact that at 20 years old, this guy is going to have reached is going to attempt to reach the semifinals of every single major before he turns 21 years old. The fact that at Wimbledon, he had played 6 matches up until he won the title there. Now, he played 5 matches before coming into the event here. Now he's playing as one of the commentators said, I believe it was Cliff Drysdale said, so one of the best tennis performances you'll ever see in your life against Kecmanovic. I think that this is a guy who's just playing tennis that we hope that we would see after the big three. So shout out to Alcaraz. I'm excited to see how he will do against potentially Sinner and Djokovic, how he does against Zverev first, against Medvedev for the rest of this event. But he is just playing absolutely outrageous, and what an absolute just firehouse shot maker of a player. It's crazy. It's crazy to watch.
Overall, I think that the men's side is a treat in terms of what we have left here for matches. And, whether we get a Djokovic Sinner semi and who of those progresses is going to make for a certainly very interesting final. And I think we're exactly where we would want, tennis position to be post the big three era. And I think we can feel pretty confident that we've got young names here who are going to carry the flag for quite some time after the big guns retire and kind of finish things off in their career. So super exciting to kind of have that little mix at the moment where we have, the kind of old, mid, and then new generation in each of these matches. So super stoked and looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree with you. And I think that Sinner and Alcaraz, the rivalry that they show, there's a potential final here, but we're definitely going to see great finals from them in the future. And you have so many young names that for sure can win big titles in the future and have that kind of top tier of play. So even Sinner and Alcaraz, for example, even if they spearhead, there are just so many names in the mix. And that's why I'm excited about the women's side with players like Zhang and Noskova having opportunities now too. So I think both tournaments are kind of unfolding in the way in a way that I'm actually excited about. Obviously, the men's side, the consistency is more there with some of the top players, but on the women's side, I think you want a mix of unpredictability and kind of dominance from both. So I think that we're getting good stuff from to make a good product at the end of the day, a good event here at the Australian Open. That's turned out well. But yeah, we can get into the Australian Open power rankings at this point in the tournament then.
Yes.
Then for the Australian Open power ranking segment of the things, our women's side is not what you will usually see on our power rankings, but we've decided to go from the players that are still in the tournament and from the players of how well they've performed in this tournament, how well we think that they're going to do for the rest of the draw. And so let's start from the women's because I think it will pop out to most right from the start. So Sabalenka and Gauff at 1 and 2, and then after that, I think we have pretty different ones, to be honest, which I think is good.
Yeah.
I've got Noskova at number 3. She's the player that I think she could have put up a really good fight against Svitolina, even if Svitolina didn't get injured, although we'll never know for sure. Like I said, Svitolina was my pick to get to the finals, so we won't know for sure, but she was playing so good against Swiatek. So I have her at 3. You have Zhang at 3. What is your thoughts with that?
Yeah, there's not much in it other than Zhang just having a little bit more kind of experience later on in tournaments on the WTA side. But I mean, I think the two of them are neck and neck, and I've just kind of given the nod to the seeded player in this situation. And seeing one less match from Noskova, that's why I edged it for me. But again, not much in it.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and then I had Zhang at 4. I have Yastremska at 5, and then I have Krejcikova. You have Kalinskaya at 5. So first of all, I already kind of talked about Yastremska. I just think she looks confident in this tournament. Kind of I don't know if she'll go as far as Raducanu, but dare I say almost equaling the Raducanu level confidence coming from the qualifying. And she's pulled out a lot of tight matches, which is something that Emma couldn't have said at that tournament. And I think she's performed at a very, very high level. Not to say that this is more impressive or not than Emma's, but it's very impressive to come through such close matches. We'll see if she has legs to play in her quarterfinal, but I think that she's been playing really well. That will be the big question, I think, on her. And then also Krejcikova. I just put Krejcikova because she's won a major before, so I put her at 6. So I'd be curious why Krejcikova's at 8 and why you have Kalinskaya at 5.
Yeah, because I watched a couple of Krejcikova's opening matches, and to be honest with you, I wasn't super impressed by her.
Yeah.
She just isn't the same, player as she was a couple years ago when she was a slam contender, and she just is too hit and miss for me in moments. I worry about her mental game at times. I mean, it's a frustrating thing with her because, again, she's another one of those talented players. She has really good double skills. She is smart and good at problem solving, but I guess I don't fancy her against Sabalenka at all, really. And so, yeah, that's why I guess I put her a little lower because, I could see more of an upset coming from a Kalinskaya and a Yastremska making a semi than I could from a Krejcikova making a semi. So that's why I've kind of gone with that order.
Yeah, well, she's gotten 3 sets in 3 of her matches. I guess the confidence of her having done it before pushed it for me. She definitely has the toughest draw of anybody, but the confidence of having been there before kind of pushed her for me. But we'll kind of see what happens. But then Kalinskaya I thought was interesting at 5. So if you want to just talk about Kalinskaya, because to be honest, of all of the quarterfinalists, I've seen the least of her, but I've seen her a lot in the past. So.
Yeah, as I mentioned before, I mean, I think she's a very clean hitter. I think she's seeing the ball really well at the moment. And again, give her a slight nod over Yastremska simply because Yastremska's played 3 more matches, of which have been very intense matches. So I think for the most part, other than against Stevens, Kalinskaya has been pretty kept the match times down in a way that feels promising to me. So I just feel like the legs for Kalinskaya are going to be fresher.
All right, fair enough. And then, we had Kostyuk. I had Kostyuk at my 8th spot, and then you had Kostyuk at 7th, just ahead of Krejcikova. I also wanted to give nods for Azarenka and Andreeva for how well they played in this tournament. I thought Azarenka could have reached another Australian Open final, would have been her first in 11 years, which would have been really a crazy kind of stat. She played really well, but she was a little bit up and down. I wasn't fully surprised. I was surprised that was to Yastremska, but I wasn't fully surprised she didn't get to the quarterfinals or the semis, for example, but she was playing good level. I wanted to give a shout out. I really wanted to give a shout out to Mira Andreeva, who is just playing such a complete level. Her stroke production seems really kind of repeatable from the back of the court, off the backhand and the forehand. She's really complete and very good on offense. She could work a little bit on the defense, but very good in defense as well. She's got some net skills. I mean, the net skills, the defense, and the serve are probably the things that could use the most work. Her backhand is amazing, but even those were doing so well, and her serve was amazing against Jabeur. So I'm just very high on Mira Andreeva, and I think she's gonna be scary real quick for a lot of players. So I think that she's somebody to watch. So I want to give those nods. And then you had Azarenka as well, and then you had another name in there as well, which I fully support as well.
Yeah. I mean, the same feelings about Azarenka. I had Svitolina, but honestly, I could have put Andreeva there too. Svitolina, I think she's produced such a good level and evolved her game in such a positive way since coming back on tour last year, and just kind of continues to impress me in her ability to fight and produce great tennis at these types of events. So it's just a real shame that we couldn't see the end of it. But I reckon she will have a strong season and will continue to be a contender at big tournaments. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It could have been a rematch of Auckland, potentially Svitolina and Gauff, whatever it could have ended up being. We didn't see it, so it was just unfortunate for Svito. And then on the men's side as well, after that, we have Djokovic, Sinner, Alcaraz for the top 3 spots, Medvedev at 4. I think a lot of people have those. I have Zverev a little bit higher because he has impressed me in terms of staying close with a lot of matches, which I think he probably should have lost, to be honest. Like I said, Norrie could have definitely taken the first set against him. So just the fact that you said a lot of those matches haven't been that close, but just the fact that I pulled him out, put him a little bit higher for me. And then I had Rublev as well at number 6, and he is your number 5 spot. Yeah, Rublev's been impressive. His match against de Minaur was really, really good. I mean, Rublev and de Minaur are 2 players that, first of all, very contrasting, but they're both finding some of their best tennis recently. Rublev's yet to lose a match this year, which is really impressive. We'll see how he does to kind of solve his quarterfinal problems, but did you want to talk about Rublev and your other picks too? Hurkacz, Fritz, Zverev.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think there's not too much between these names at the moment. The reason why Rublev impressed me a little bit more in terms of that match against de Minaur. I just think he kind of hit a different gear that 4th and 5th set. Played some really good tennis. Yeah, I feel like his performances, even though he's also played 5-set matches, just as Zverev has been more in his control, like the finishing final sets, other than against Sabeth Wilch, which obviously was in a match tiebreak. But I mean, I even think Zverev said himself against Klein that he really didn't think he should have won that match, and I just wasn't impressed by the level, and his sort of nerve management over the last couple of games hasn't looked as strong as it maybe did against in United Cup. And so, yeah, but there's not much between these spots, and Hurkacz and Fretz, I mean, both serving well, both kind of getting to these quarters in reasonably unfazed fashion. So, but again, not favoring any of these guys over the top four. I just think we have that level of separation now between these top players, and kind of the 1 through 4 looks different than 5 through 9 or 5 through 10 in terms of their chances at winning. So, that explains the differences.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have much to add there. And then, yeah, Demonor I had as a shout out. Hatchnoff I had a shout out because he did play a good match against Sinner, even though he lost in straight sets. Demonor's been playing amazing. I think he was tired against Rublev in kind of the 4th, 5th sets. He gave his absolute all out there.
Yeah.
We had some really great rallies. I think he just looks like a transformed player, to be honest, the way he can turn defense into offense. And I just love to see it for Demon. He came up against a really high level Rublev who just ran away with the 5th set there. And then you have completely different shout outs.
Yeah, I mean, I should have put Demonor in there, to be honest. I don't know why I didn't, but Tsitsipas, I think he played a better tournament than I was expecting him to play, given his back injury, although I have no idea what he is doing with tinkering his serve in the middle of the match. I mean, it's just bizarre. Like he did it again versus Fretz on break points, on big moments. He switched from platform to pinpoint. It was just like, dude, you didn't have an issue really with your serve last year. Like, I don't know why this is something that you're playing with at a Grand Slam, but to each their own. I think in general his performances were better than I was expecting. And just wanted to give a good little nod to Mannarino, just because he continues to be a problem player for folks on tour, and in the most non-traditional way of going about it, is such an entertainer. It's so much fun to watch. There's very few guys that are ranked, kind of outside of the top 20 that like I really look forward to watching all the time, just because you never know what sort of chaos you're going to get from him. And that's exactly what he gave us this tournament. 3 matches of complete chaos, and the 4th one was just funny in the end. I mean, it was just not great performance, but then again, he's playing against a guy in Djokovic that is a different beast. But would have liked to see that be a bit more competitive. But I think he brings a smile to everyone's face, and it's an enjoyable watch. So
yeah,
that's why I wanted him.
I think you need a guy like Mannarino in there to shake things up a little bit.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I think if you told us that these were our power rankings a week ago, we would have just told you were lying. But it's it's been a chaotic Australian Open, and it's been a fun one as well. All right, well, that has been the Tennis 360 podcast. My name's Anthony Hirsch.
I'm Eliza Wastcoat.
Next podcast will be the end of the Australian Open. That's going to be a crazy podcast. Please make sure to join in for that. We'll talk about all things that go on in the second week, including the final and the semifinals, all of that. And yeah, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to QualityShot Tennis if you enjoyed it as well. I'll see you guys at the next one.